Good morning. Good morning. So those of you who may remember the last time I came, I greeted you by saying namaste. And I start again in a place of gratitude, again reminding us that namaste is an honoring of our inner light, beauty, truth, agency. And it is a recognition of that inner light in everybody around us, a recognition of our shared humanity. Namaste. Namaste. I am so grateful to return today and to be able to share and talk to you about something I am so passionate about. Artivism is something that in our world embodies hope in so many ways. So as we open today, we've remembered Robb Elementary School, what just happened, knowing that it hasn't been that long since Sandy Hook, Parkland, what happened in Parkland, Columbine, so many lives. If you start to look at hate crimes as well, there has been an increased targeting against our most vulnerable communities. In fact, when the shooting at Robb Elementary happened, we also lost the lives of several individuals that are homeless in encampment sites around the US due to gun violence. We have a lot of work to do in our world. And of course, Dr. King reminded us that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. But I always like to remind my own kids, that arc is not going to bend itself. We, the people, have to bend it. One of the things that I love about Artivism is it is a way to actively bend the arc. Artists, as long as history has been alive across cultures, across the globe, you can see how artists have been part of movements for social change, how artists have showed up to heal. But I'll start by sharing with you, right? On this slide itself, you see art by Ashley Lukashev. And the art is really speaking to this idea of beyond resistance. It speaks to the idea how all of us are creative human beings. When you think about children, if you've ever seen kids, they pretty much come out of the womb with creativity. Imaginations are unbound. They're able to make imaginary games out of nothing. You give them cardboard, paper rolls, they can take anything, rocks, sticks, and they start to play. We are born creative as human beings. It's pretty amazing. What happens, unfortunately, is a lot through our schooling systems and institutions, sometimes our creative capacities are squashed, diminished. And that's how you see from childhood to adulthood how creativity sometimes starts to diminish, or our belief in our own creativity starts to diminish. So I have a community sharing I want us to start with today. I want to ask all of you to think about, what is your favorite genre of music? Has this genre been consistent over time, or has your musical taste changed? And would you go ahead and talk to somebody next to you, or a few people next to you, and just take a moment of reflective time. All right, I'm going to have us gather back. I know, that was quick sharing. But you know, I'm so happy to see you all connect and to share. When we talk about Artivism, it, much like how I greeted you this morning, it is again a place of that shared humanity. And part of that shared humanity, that empathy, that rooted love comes from human connection. Recognizing the similarities, the unique differences, but the beauty, as Maya Angelou would tell us, in diversity there is beauty and there is strength. And we feel that beauty and strength when we make opportunities to connect in community, beloved community. And so I love that. Just hearing the bubbling chatter is joy to the soul. So this morning, Kathy had started us off with a beautiful song by Bob Dylan. shall overcome. How many of you know that song? We shall overcome. Beautiful. Oh, I love it. You all are such a singing group. So we shall overcome. Many consider this to be the anthem of the civil rights movement. When you think about music, it has always had a part in our movements. You think about how even during a time of shackled oppression, during slavery, how many slaves kept faithful through music. Music is a form of spirituality. It is also a form of universal connection. You look around the globe, and music is something that continues to connect us. I want to share something with you all, and I'm going to email this resource as well. Hopefully Kathy can get it out to the congregation here. There is a movement that I absolutely love called Playing for Change. Playing for Change. So if you don't know it, check it out. If you know it, check out their new stuff that's come out recently. Really, really amazing. They connect people all over the world through music. Beautiful music videos where you will see people playing at real time from Haiti to Syria, all the way, every continent, and people are connecting over this music. The funds also go for a really good cause to help with arts integration, music integration in the school. So really great movement to check out. If any of you have children, grandchildren in your lives, or if you just love picture books, because I'm going to tell you a little secret, even as adults, picture books are wonderful. Sometimes we think that picture books are just for kids, but picture books have so many layers that we can all unpack and embrace into our lives. Really, really beautiful book, We Shall Overcome. It's won a lot of awards, in fact, but a really great picture book to check out as well. So the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Let's talk about that for a second. The UDHR was passed all the way in 1945. We know that this milestone document, that's when it got translated, but then it got officially passed right in 1948. One of the head people to pass the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was Eleanor Roosevelt. It's interesting, in our history books, many times Eleanor is just introduced as the First Lady. She was much more than that. Many women continue to not get the credit they deserve throughout history. We have to change that. We have to make sure that we are amplifying diverse stories and voices and truths. And it is a pretty frightening time right now, especially living here in Florida, if you're keeping up with the news, where librarians, media center specialists, teachers are often being attacked for teaching truthful history, where books about Rosa Parks are being removed from library shelves. We have a lot of work to do. Especially here, we call ourselves the Sunshine State. But right now, there's not a lot of sunshine. We've got to change that. So the UDHR, right, it's translated over 500 languages. Now, it is not a law, a legal law, but it is a guiding document with articles that declares that every human being has fundamental human rights. From access to food and shelter, to an education, to not facing discrimination. Lots of different human rights that are fundamental. But here's the thing, right now in 2022, we are seeing some of the deepest fractures and ongoing human rights violations that we have ever seen. We live in the United States, and in many ways, our democracy is calling on all of us to rise and make sure that everybody has these fundamental human rights preserved, protected, promoted.
when we talk about even poverty and homelessness. I will share with you, we are seeing the highest numbers historically with large disproportionalities, overrepresentation, especially among children and youth. And in our state of Florida, these numbers are magnified, especially when you compound it with the lack of affordable housing that we have happening. Lots of work, but here's the thing, even as daunting as these issues are, Artivism is one space and place we can find hope. And I'm going to share a lot of movements with you as well today. So here's a really beautiful piece that gives us a lot of contemplation. So this is by an artist, Deonta Ono. And this artist is known for creating artwork that is often seen as controversial. He'll pick a lot of subjects, from political subjects to subjects people don't want to talk about, and really bring them to light on purpose to kind of push and pull, to get us thinking and talking. This particular piece is called What Makes America Great? What Makes America Great? So he was playing on, political rhetoric and words, but when you look at it, you see diversity being affirmed. Many forms of diversity. All the way from a woman wearing a hijab for religious diversity, to our LGBTQIA+ community, all the way to Latinx, to our indigenous peoples. Here, you see a Black male, and it was intentional that the artist put him in a hoodie. Anybody know why?
Yeah.
Trayvon Martin. Right? Trayvon Martin. So the artist wants us to think quite deeply about the beauty of diversity, but also to think about the landscape right now in the US, the challenges and issues we're having. Here, you notice a woman wearing scrubs, our essential workers who have been on the front line during COVID-19, putting their lives literally on the front lines. And in fact, I would argue our teachers are doing the same. Our teachers are doing the same. I have a lot to say about our teachers. In fact, Spectrum 13, if any of you watch the local news, I just did an interview. You can go online and see a couple interviews. But it was about our educators, what they are going through and the support we need to give our schools and our educators as they are investing in our children and youth. So we have a lot of work to do. Now, this is interesting. When you look at this painting, there's always this kind of debate, are these individuals putting the flag up, or are they taking it down to reimagine and rebuild the United States? And people see it in different ways, right? And as art is, that's the beauty of art, interpretation. We all have our own unique lenses that we put.
Isn't it a play on the Okinawa?
It is.
Yeah, okay.
So if you know the statue, right, the Okinawa, very good eye, very good observation. It is a play on that as well, and putting these diverse figures into it. Awesome. You get an A+ today. So this is a quote by M.K. Asante. And if you know, M.K. Asante is a really, really amazing, talented filmmaker, writer, poet. He's done a memoir that's beautiful. Lots of good writing has come out. And M.K. Asante is an artist. And M.K. Asante says the artivist, and that word is artist plus activist, right? That is what an artivist is. Uses her artistic talents to fight and struggle against injustice and oppression by any medium necessary. The artivist merges the commitment to freedom and justice with the pen, the lens, the brush, the voice, the body, and the imagination. So when we think about artivism, it is using our creative outlets and tools to advocate, to send symbolic messages into the world. As I stand here in our beautiful space as community, I would just share that the UU Church has, for a long time, used artivism as a means to even educate. I look just at the walls here and look at all of the beautiful different faiths that are represented symbolically. The music that you all use to inspire, to open our spirits and souls. There's a lot of art in this space, art being deeply intertwined to spirituality. And this here is a piece by Sandra Silsberg called The House of Love and Diversity. House of Love and Diversity. So here, when we think about artivism, we think about, again, looking across the world, you can always see how movements, whether we're talking about the civil rights movement, whether we talk about the freedom movement that happened in India with Mahatma Gandhi that also helped inspire Dr. King, all of these movements have the arts as one way to help to organize, as one way to help to educate and agitate, and perhaps one of the most powerful connective ways that got humans to be able to work together and to be able to open both heart and mind. And so it's very powerful. Now this piece of artwork is by Helena Pavanes. And she's a graphic artist, usually works out of Paris, France, or Spain, kind of has two different art galleries in those. I love this piece. It resonates very deeply for me, because I think in many ways, for me, when I look at this kind of complex maze and movement, I think about our world today that we're all navigating. We are living in a world where we have so many different pieces in fast movement kind of going around, and we're all in this kind of maze, trying to navigate, trying to make sense of everything going on in our world. And it's a lot. And sometimes it's really hard to even see the light, but yet we have to keep faith that there is light surrounding us. In fact, one of my own mentors, Congressman John Lewis, always spoke about optimism, about faith, and how it is crucial to human rights and justice, that we cannot lose faith, we cannot lose hope as we do this work. And so I think about, as we're going through this maze, even when we're dealing with these really complex and heavy issues, we have to still preserve that hope, that faith, and even still nurture joy. There is also joy in justice, and we should not lose sight of that as well. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Paulo Freire. Really amazing Brazilian educator, scholar, activist. And one of my favorite books, a critical kind of piece in my own journey, is his book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Now, it is a heavy read. There are times where you have to kind of reread parts, right? But there's a lot of gems in this book, a lot of gems. One of the things Paulo Freire really teaches us is that many times our institutions, even schooling, has been this kind of banking model where it actually ties very much into the propaganda quotation that Kathy had put up earlier today. Really good tie-in. And how critical thinking and liberation is so important if we're going to advance justice and democracy. And how we, as people, have to push for those meaningful exchanges, push to think deeper, to question, critical questioning. I love this space again because I feel that the you're willing to dig deeper, to question, to have difficult conversations that are so important, but might be challenging to have. That is huge. Now, Paulo Freire, interestingly enough, he calls something called the practice of freedom. And when you start to look again about a lot of the work around the practice of freedom, the arts are again embedded. Freedom coming from songs that humans have sang, coming from dance. Look at countries and think about even during times of celebration, but even during times of protest, how dance has been at the forefront. Human expression in all of these powerful, beautiful forms are so vital and important. And Maya Angelou reminds us you can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. That's a beautiful thing about creativity. So I want to share some different movements with you. So who knows what's going on here?
It's DC.
Washington, D.C., love it. Yeah, so this is where community got together. They painted Black Lives Matter. This took a lot of community members coming together to do this. They had to close up the actual roads. Now, it is amazing to look at kind of maps across the world, not just the United States, where community has gotten together to paint Black Lives Matter, multicolors, different kinds of lettering styles. But the thing here that really I want to point out, you see the power of the message, but it's also the power that community got together, multi-generations, different ages, different races and ethnicities, people with different linguistic diversity, everybody getting together with this common goal, to unify. So process in Artivism is as important as product, right? And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So here you see right here in Florida, this is in St. Petersburg in front of the Woodson Museum. So right here in Florida, look at this. Beautiful, right? Beautiful. And you can see many examples in our world. Now, what I love is creativity and activism coming forth in all sorts of ways. So another example in terms of literature is Elizabeth Acevedo is a young adolescent writer. She has a book called The Poet X and many other books as well that are worth checking out. If anybody likes YA literature, which I would again argue is not just for young adolescents, but adults as well, The Poet X is amazing. It's a book that is written all in poems, and it is just a beautiful, beautiful story that touches on a lot of different human topics. Now, if you have a lot of travels this summer, she has such a beautiful reading on the audiobook. So I would really, especially since it's poetry, I would tell you maybe treat yourself to the audiobook. Very affordable and well worth the listen and read as well. A couple other pieces for us to contemplate. This right here is a wooden door. You see a glass piece in the middle. It says admissions office. And you see kind of this black image of a body pressed with hands trying to get in. This, it is actually called the Door Admissions Office. And this was done in honor of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 by the artist David Hammond. And David Hammond, look at this sculptural piece, was really starting to talk about unequal educational landscapes and the segregation that has happened for a very long time and continues to happen. In fact, what Jonathan Cazal and other scholars would say, the apartheid in schooling that we have in the US. It's very powerful to kind of give us contemplation. This is just a beautiful graphic illustration by Hilary Leslie. What I love is this idea of multi-colored hands, but in the hands is this heart that is pulsing, reminding us that social change is in our hands, right? It is in our hands. So Banksy is a UK, does a lot of different graffiti art. That's what Banksy is known for, but does a lot of different art that pushes us to think in different ways. One of the pieces that I really, really love, it says, "Keep your coins. I want change." Keep your coins, I want change. Right? Really talking about that systemic and structural change that is needed, especially when we think about poverty. And then here you have a beautiful quilt. So I don't know if any of you sew, but quilting is another form of art that has been so powerful. In fact, again, during the civil rights movement, so many families, individuals captured stories and even gave signs for mobilization, for protests through quilting. Quilting is very powerful. So this is a quote by Liz Havertine, and it says, "Nevertheless, she persisted." Really speaks to kind of politics women in leadership roles, and the change that we still have to continue pushing for in our nation and globally. So, eco-justice, let's talk about that for a minute. Environmental justice is very, very deeply connected to all of the other forms of justice when we talk about this. So last time I came and visited, I brought up a term, intersectionality, that for a long time, we spoke about injustices and inequalities kind of in silence. Somebody was working on homelessness over here. Somebody's working on the environmental issues over here. Somebody's working on racism here, sexism here, ableism here. Everybody kind of in silence. What we now know is in order to maximize our resources, our efforts, and really push for sustainable change, we've got to be able to work intersectionally. We have to think in that way, and it's vital. So let me give you one quick example of that. Even when I work with young adolescents that are experiencing homelessness, 13 and above, over 50% are LGBTQIA+. So if we're not looking at that in conjunction with this, let's also go back to talking about poverty and homelessness. We have an evictions crisis right now in our nation. Over 80% are Black mothers with children. So if we are not to start to talk about things in these intersections, we're going to miss vital pieces. That's where the intersections become very important. Now, environment, even as we're talking about environmental challenges, eco-justice, looking at intersections is vital. What we know right now is across the landscape of the US, Black and Brown communities, especially Black, Latinx, Indigenous, even tribal communities, are suffering from climate issues at much higher levels, including having complete neighborhoods that are being flooded because of where they were, completely losing their home. Think about the heat indexes that have continued to happen, even in the past year. There's been some really incredible scientific studies come out showing how even when they started to look at rising heat and we lost people's lives to the immense heat out west, how, again, neighborhoods that were predominantly Black and Brown had far higher heat indexes than white communities, even as you start to look at west in, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, many, many places moving into the East Coast. Does anybody know why?
More concrete, less trees.
Okay, more concrete, less trees, right? So even thinking about these injustices from all of the different lenses. And so this is very real. So when we think about this, though, there is also hope. And let me tell you some of the hope. This project you see here, this is a shark. It's called Chompers the Shark. It is part of a project called Washed Ashore. Washed Ashore, led by Angela Palestine Posey. And this project, Washed Ashore, has actually collected plastics, all kinds of things that have literally come from the ocean, and they have created these massive, so Chompers the Shark is like 11 feet. It's huge when you come see it. Beautiful. You see it made out of bottles and bottle caps and flip-flops and all kinds of things, plastics that have been polluting our oceans. And we know that's changing the biodiversity, that is, adding to all of our climate issues. And so this is one way they've tried to use art to educate and to also push for change that is needed. Here, I have the next example. I have a short video clip I want everybody to watch. One of my favorite movements as well, called Landfill Harmonic. What they have done is they have taken, has anybody traveled to Paraguay, South America?
Years ago.
Years ago, okay. So if you know, so in Paraguay, really, really such a beautiful people and country, but they have a massive challenge with trash. They have not had systems to get rid of trash. Due to plastic, all of the trash that's not compostable, it's built up, to the point where many, many communities in Paraguay are built on top of landfills. literally built, on top. And so it's a real problem. Now here in this example, the other thing you'll see is they have high amounts of poverty where many children are not able to access many of the things, including the arts. We have visionaries and community work together to intersectionally think about solutions to these issues. So just take a look at this.
Mi nombre es Ada Maribel Ríos Bodado, tengo 13 años y toco el violín.
Me llamo Juan Manuel Chávez, más conocido como Eddie, tengo 19 años y toco el cello. Este cello está hecho de una lata de aceite, la madera tirada en la basura y las clavijas son de una vieja cuchara para golpear la carne y para hacer ñoquis. Y suena así.
Para tener un violín. De hecho, un violín cuesta más que tu casa.
Nuestro grupo Artivism tocamos con la radio y ese usamos los instrumentos reciclados.
Recycled instruments.
La familia que acá vive recicla todo lo que hay en la basura y se vende. No pensaba antes que yo voy a hacer esos instrumentos. Y me siento demasiado feliz cuando estoy viendo a un niño que está tocando un violín reciclado.
Cuando yo escucho el sonido del violín, siento como mariposa en el estómago, así una sensación, no sé cómo voy a explicar.
La orquesta de instrumentos reciclados es una orquesta que toca instrumentos hechos con la basura.
1, 2, 3.
Mi vida sería, sin la música estaría decorable.
La gente se da cuenta que no tenemos que tirar la basura muy fácilmente. No tenemos que desechar a las personas muy fácilmente.
Beautiful, right? Amazing to think that is made out of trash. Those instruments, what a beautiful way to intersectionally think about solutions. And the Recycled Orchestra has been able to play now, all over the world. It's pretty amazing the opportunities the children have had through this, right? Through this, and this is what a beautiful example of artivism in multi-leveled ways. So this, of course, is my son. I don't stand up and wave so everybody can see you. My boy, my baby boy who towers over me. So I'm so proud of him. He's been able to use his talents in many different ways. But one of the things he did is he designed a t-shirt, a graphic t-shirt for our local neighborhood center in West Volusia. So we have a neighborhood center, which is a family emergency shelter that helps individuals and families in homelessness. And he was able to do fundraising through the t-shirt and raise thousands to help our neighborhood center. Really, really awesome. So, this is kind of even our youth. I think about their creative spirit and their ingenuity, and we have to promote that. We have to help them to tap into that agency and to use it for good. And that is, there's a lot that we can all do in that sense. So this is my daughter, Ramila Sitara. You'll hopefully get to meet her the next time I come. I'll definitely bring her. She had a Girl Scout event today. They're laying out wreaths for Memorial Day, doing an event. And this is my student Taja up here, one of my students. We planned a huge human rights event at our campus. And it included where people were able to come participate with sidewalk chalk, really, really creative kinds of things. My daughter is now working to design human rights games. So think about even using Jenga in creative ways to educate. So it really was interactive and fun. And then also we have a movement called Acts of Kindness and Justice. Through this movement, we have 2 mural projects that are going to be taking place in downtown DeLand. One of them will be a community mural, and I am definitely going to invite all of you to help come out. We want to get as many people out there as possible to help us with this project. It's going to be really amazing, again, thinking about bringing people together in community, because process is as important as product. And so we have 2 murals. One, we're going to actually, there was a historical sit-in at the Woolworths during the 60s that was led by high school students in our Euclid High School, which was an all-black high school. And Joyce Cusack, who, if you don't know her, you can look her up, really amazing soul. She was one of the high school students who marched. And so we're going to have one that's a historical, based on a photograph of the actual march to educate people with a plaque, so people really know that history. The other is actually a mural that my son and I designed. It's a tree of compassion and justice. And so that's going to go up as well, and we're really excited about that. And our youth are really spearheading this based on oral history projects.
When is that going to happen?
So right now, we are launching this summer. It's going to be fundraising now. We got the wall sites. We're working with Main Street, and we've gotten approvals and all of that, but we have to now raise funds to get the mural artists. So my hope is, COVID kind of slowed us down with everything, but now we're back in motion. So my hope is over the coming year, we can actually start to announce dates and begin to work. So thank you for asking, and I will keep you all posted for sure. And then also I wanted to share a personal example of Artivism. So this is my collection of poetry, To Luminous. And I wrote this, I've always written poetry. For me, the arts have been such a therapeutic, healing force, but something that's allowed me to stay resilient in the face of traumas. In the face of many hardships, I was able to kind of turn to art. And I'm really grateful to my Amma. She's online today, I believe, watching through Zoom. I love you, Mom. But my Amma was really, when I was young, even when we struggled, where we didn't have a lot of money, she was able to take me to the public library. It was a place of just healing and therapy to be among books, but also to have librarians they had a station where it had just coloring materials, and I was able to lose myself in doodling, writing poetry, and it was something that has preserved me in my own life and even saved my life in many ways. So this book is all poems rooted around social justice and our shared humanity. And I am using the full proceeds to help with our mentoring program for youth and homelessness and the arts. And today I want to share one poem from here. I'm going to share a poem a little lighter. There's some pieces that are kind of heavy in here. But the piece that I'm going to share with you, this is called Wings Spread Open, and it's about creativity. So I thought it's perfect, and it's a little shorter as well. Wings spread open. Clock towers joyously chime, unplugging to journey inward. Stocked up on cough tea. Bundles of colored pens fill my hands with thirsty invitations from dusty sketchbooks. Parched spirit opens wide for Indra to flow through me. I guzzle raging thunderstorms. Let gentle rainfall marinate on my lips. Midnight hair tickling my toes, pulse navigating the way, listening to the quadrants pointing to the sun. Creativity uncovers her eyes. determined to find me after a protracted game of hide and seek. Ready or not, here I come, she trustingly bellows, and I awake from hibernation, walk out of the shadows towards her voice, liberated from uncontrollable camouflaging, twisting myself into sundry pretzel positions to fit into miniature closets, sandwiched between furniture and walls, bruising from being crushed, swaddled too tightly in curtains, dreaming of air. Liberated, I walk towards her voice, unshackled and free. I stretch my limbs and Tarzan yodel, ooh! Wearing a silver crescent smile, hibiscus garlands around my neck, reflecting the element of water, swadhisthana. I feel a spark below my navel. I swallow uncertainty. Buckled up, wings spread open, diving into the depth of prayer. Invoking Varuna, I extend myself across oceans. Atlantic on my left, Indian on my right. I ignite my inner muse and begin to flutter my wings. Ready or not, here I come, she repeats even louder. This time, without hesitation, I respond, ready. So poetry is one of those ways where we can also start to push for change in different ways. It's also a way to tap back into our own selves and inward contemplation. And what we know about justice is justice begins with ourselves, finding that peace, that love inside of ourselves, so we can start to radiate that into the world. We have a lot of healing to do in the world. And again, Artivism is one way to do that. Quotation by Maya Angelou, history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. And I think about butterflies. If anybody likes butterflies in here, they are pretty amazing. I always share, my daughter got one of these kits where we got to watch it from a caterpillar to a butterfly and release it back into the sky. And butterflies have something called imaginal cells. And at first, when they come at the butterfly doesn't recognize it and tries to resist, but these imaginal cells grow and grow and start coming, and it leads to this metamorphosis. I think about Artivism in the same way, that we start even with a small group, but we grow, and the impact, the collective impact, is so radiant and beautiful, allowing our humanity to soar. I would keep you all day if I could, because I love talking about this stuff, but I know Kathy will keep me on time. So I want to end here, and I want to say namaste. And I also want to end with a quotation by Margaret Mead, cultural anthropologist, another woman who does not get enough credit, so I want to credit her today. She says, never doubt that a small group of committed individuals can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And as we gather today, let's go forth and change the world.